What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 2 Thursday Night Football film preview. And today we'll be trying to answer the big and popular question right now surrounding the Jacksonville Jaguars. Can Gardner Minshew be a true franchise quarterback, or even is he already a franchise quarterback? So we're going to do a film and traits-based analysis of Minshew. We're going to grade him for every trait that I use when evaluating QBs. Then give him a final grade and answer this all-important question at the end. Before we hop in, please do take a second to hit that like button down below. It really helps me out. So first off is arm talent. This trait is pretty self-explanatory. How good is the quarterback's arm, and more importantly, what sorts of throws is the quarterback capable of making on a consistent basis? To me, Gardner Minshew's arm talent is the biggest and most legitimate concern for his game, and I grade it with a C, being perfectly average for the expected NFL quarterback. It's the reason he fell to the 6th round, and it's also the biggest thing I believe that he is having to mold his game around. When you hear people question his upside, it is because of the arm talent, mostly. And many will tell you that arm talent is overrated, which can very well be true. But for every Drew Brees or Joe Burrow who overcome questions regarding arm talent, you can find 2 or 3 or more players like Andy Dalton, Case Keenum, Tyrod Taylor, Ryan Fitzpatrick, who have had to limit their play styles because they have a limit to the way that they can play due to a lack of arm talent. The reality is, having a strong arm not only helps a quarterback throw an accurate football downfield. Just picture yourself in the backyard trying to throw a 20-yard out. If you had a cannon, it would be a little easier to get that throw down. But it also allows you to open up your repertoire and do something I repeat often on this channel. Open up the entire field in the passing game. It's a large trait consistent amidst NFL elite quarterbacks. So with that said, how does this impact Gardner Minshew specifically? To be honest, not all that much. While I do believe he will never be able to play in a legitimately explosive vertical passing scheme because he doesn't have the arm talent to open up the entire field in the passing game, Minshew has shown, though, that he does so many other things well that he has put himself in a great position to succeed at a relatively high level despite having similar arm talent to players like Case Keenum. So it's good to get that out of the way. I don't think there's much dispute there that Minshew's arm talent simply is not very good. But let's discuss how he compensates that with other traits. A great way to compensate for a lack of arm talent and inability to use the entire field in the passing game is mobility. If there are certain throws a quarterback with a weak arm shouldn't be asked to make on a consistent basis, one way to open up the ways the quarterback can beat you is to extend plays with his feet, which in turn can open up newfound passing lanes by extending plays, and of course by creating yards on the ground. Now, unfortunately, this is probably the second most fair criticism of Gardner Minshew, and another reason that could rationally justify why someone would say he has a lack of upside. Minshew is not particularly fast. While he has slightly above average speed, he's not going to run away from a whole lot of NFL defenders in a straight line, and it is going to show up from time to time. That said, he very much makes up for that lack of raw speed with superb pocket presence and understanding of angles to help him elude potential sacks. And in general, he has really good balance and quickness with his lower body to at least help him buy some time. And we'll get into his grades on pocket presence and play extension later. However, strictly grading Gardner Minshew the athlete, I'd have to give him a C+ for his raw speed and a B for his quickness. Quickness, by the way, is effectively how sudden he is, how capable he is of moving laterally and in short areas. And then, of course, speed and quickness can also come into play on designed runs, which can be a huge asset for many other quarterbacks that are great runners like Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen. Needless to say, though, that's another type of play call that is unlikely to ever play a large role in a Gardner Minshew offense and is just another limitation on his quote-unquote upside or scheme dependency, if you will. Now, as we move forward, we will begin grading his passing abilities, which is truly where Gardner makes up for a lack of physical traits the most. So let's get his release out of the way. This trait's rather straightforward. It's how fluid his mechanics are and how quickly he can get rid of the ball. Minshew's mechanics are pretty much by the book. He doesn't have a rapid arm like Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, or even modern-day Lamar Jackson, but he does have a nice, fluid throwing motion that gets the job done, and he's also more than capable of throwing with weird angles and the quick screen game and play-action game, kind of playing that point guard that we've talked about in videos past. Overall, I give Minshew a B on his release. I have no real criticism in this area. It's solid. It's fine. Next up is his quick accuracy. This is, to me, the first plus trait of Minshew's. He has legitimately impressive ball placement on short throws, which includes leading players towards the sidelines, hitting players on the run in the short game, and most importantly, throwing the ball with leverage away from closing defenders, which is one of the premier traits of guys like Drew Brees and Tom Brady. What's promising is this is a trait that is shown to only improve over time, and I have no true questions about his short accuracy. So if peak Tom Brady, Drew Brees is an A+, at this point in time, I'm going to give Gardner Minshew an A- for his quick accuracy, and is very much a trait that I think can improve over time towards that A+ range in a best case scenario. Now we get to impact accuracy. Impact accuracy can often be subjective, but to put it in the best terms, this is the quarterback's ability to make what are known as NFL throws, and in my opinion, also the ability to make big-time throws on the move, even if they don't clear your typical 15-plus air yards threshold that is typical for what quantifies a quote-unquote NFL throw. Impact accuracy, to me, is the one passing trait for Minshew that I do believe is likely to be limited by his arm talent. However, unlike the arm talent itself, Minshew can and has shown the ability to improve upon this and remain accurate on those big-time throws despite that lack of arm juice. Through his first 2 starts this season, and going back to his rookie season, Minshew has legitimately surprised me, especially given his lack of arm talent, with his placement on downfield throws. Many times watching him on film, I'm reminded of players like Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, and even Drew Brees, who developed into accurate vertical throwers over time despite having that cannon. And they achieved this by throwing with great mechanics, anticipation, touch, and whatever that little it factor is inside their mind. So that said, his deeper throws do seem to lack even the zip that those players that I just mentioned have. Your Drew Brees, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott. Minshew really gets under the ball when targeting deep and puts a lot of loft on his ball that can actually remind you a lot of a Nick Foles, what I call a teardrop shot that simply just hangs really long and comes in at the last second. It isn't rocket science to say that it's just incredibly difficult to remain a consistently dominant deep passer when you can't put the ball, another thing I say a lot, wherever you want, whenever you want. So as far as his grade is concerned with impact accuracy, I am actually going to give him a B-, which is a lot higher than I expected going into this. Despite his limits, Minshew throws the deep ball with confidence and often gets it there on time by throwing with anticipation and proper mechanics. And as long as he does something, as we often say with Drew Brees, and quote-unquote picks his shots in the vertical passing game, this is a trait that he can continue to improve by effectively limiting his deep attempts to strictly high probability shots. And doing that will be heavily tied to his processor and decision making, which I want to get to in a second, but his last accuracy grade here will be a B+ for off-platform accuracy. No surprise, but this trait is a quarterback's ability to be accurate while throwing off balance and often with weird angles. Minshew, given a lack of arm talent, is about as good at this as you'd expect. He has a thick and balanced lower base, as we earlier mentioned, that to me is one of the first steps to throwing accurately on the move, because you have that foundation that you can quickly set on the move. But he also has great mechanics. He does a great job squaring up his hips just before the point of release, which is really important. The one thing holding him back here stems from that lack of true arm talent. For a quarterback who relies on mechanics to generate velocity, such as Gardner Minshew, he just simply doesn't have it in him to consistently throw the ball around the yard on the move, because in many circumstances like this, the quarterback needs to draw on his arm to generate the velocity to make some pretty damn hard throws. Now, you can get by without making these throws, but it is going to be a limit on his upside. Basically, I don't see Minshew turning into Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson anytime soon and start dropping 35-yard seeds while rolling out to his left. But all in all, he's more than capable of manipulating his body and making throws off platform, particularly within about 15 to 20 yards of where he currently is at the time. So I do grade him at a B+. So we talked about how his processor and decision-making are and will continue to be vital ingredients to Minshew's game, as those are key parts of how he can compensate for a lack of physical traits. If he is truly going to become a franchise quarterback who can sustainably win games in the NFL, he is going to need to continue to show what he's shown from a processor and decision-making element. And this is another area of his game where Minshew has frankly blown me away to kick off his first full season as the starter in Jacksonville. So I'm sure processor and decision-making are understood differently for everyone, and some may even combine the two. But the way I evaluate a quarterback's processor is his ability to read defenses pre-snap and his ability to play within the designed rhythm of the offense after the snap. Whereas the way I evaluate decision-making is much more about the decisions the quarterback makes out of rhythm, or what he does when his first read is not open. This is the most tangible grade you can give to that ever so elusive it factor that we often bring up when evaluating the quarterback position. Now, when it comes to Gardner Minshew, for such an inexperienced quarterback with just 16 starts, it's impossible not to be impressed by both his processor and his decision-making. Minshew comes from Mike Leach's spread offense at Washington State. And this offense puts a strong emphasis of understanding the numbers game and creating stress on zone coverages by stacking sides. For years, this type of offense was scoffed at for being too college-y. But it turns out many of the concepts permeating through college have grown rampant in the NFL, and the fundamentals Minshew walked out of Leach's offense have very clearly stuck with him and worked to his advantage in the NFL. Minshew is a genuinely smart quarterback, and I do not find it a coincidence that he had one of his best days against the Colts defense in Week 1 that basically dropped into cover 3 or variants of cover 6, cover 3 match virtually all game, and Minshew just picked it apart. It was too vanilla for him. And for a second-year player set to make his 17th start tonight against Miami, I'm very impressed with Minshew's ability to check a defense and properly make a read, a first read or a second read. And this is an area that I believe Minshew will only continue to improve over time, though I think it's already very good, so I don't know how much it can truly improve. But I will, however, note I am interested to see how he matches up against a team in Miami tonight who runs a ton of man coverage, which may actually reduce Minshew's advantage that he has on the mental side of things and go after some of his more inabilities physically, things like throwing guys open against man coverage, which require some really impressive balls, often with a lot of velocity, or to collect big runs, taking advantage of man coverage while scrambling. So that'll be a fun game to see, but overall, I give Minshew's processor a B, which is very impressive for a second-year player. And then we've got his decision-making. And I've also been really impressed with what I've seen here. So I grade him B+ for his decision-making, which is in a lot of ways that it factor that he really does seem to have, which is a big deal, something that I would not have said about guys like Andy Dalton or Alex Smith, who are common comparisons for Minshew. But in his first 2 starts of the season, I only logged 1 bad decision. This was where he zeroes in on a deep crosser. He's got an 8-man protection in front of him, and the coverage is cover 4. And he zeroes in on this crossing route that was never going to be there. He just stares it down and forces it on a pretty dumb throw into double coverage. That should have been an interception. So he does get dinged for that, and it's stuff that he's going to have to consistently weed out over time, but it's not something you overreact to when it's 1 bad decision in 2 games. But other than this, I mean, really, I can't emphasize enough how complete Minshew's decision-making and his composure after his first read are. He knows when to take risks. He knows when to take a sack, when not to take a sack that will take him out of field goal range. He knows when to hang in the pocket to let a route develop. He knows when he needs to get out of the pocket and or run the ball. This knowing when and how to extend the play that I say so often, that's been a major criticism of guys like Derek Carr. It was a criticism I have of Tua Tagovailoa coming out of Alabama. Something I've said about Dak Prescott. It's a rare trait that he genuinely has. He also has a nice general balance of ability to take those calculated risks, but also to be careful when it's necessary. So it's all really good stuff, something you would see and expect from a 5+ year veteran quarterback making a lot of money, not a 6th round pick in his 2nd year in the NFL. And it's something that I think he'll only continue to find that balance and develop over time. Now, a lot of what I just said plays into my final 2 traits here, but I do want to take a look at them in a different light. So first we have pocket sense. This pocket sense is the total combination of a lot of things. How comfortable does the quarterback feel in the pocket? How able are they to feel pressure from every direction? And then there's that aforementioned ability of knowing when and how to manipulate the pocket. When do you hang in there? When do you break the pocket to extend plays? When do you run? All of that stuff, that's pocket sense, comfortability in the pocket, basically. This trait was evident in Minshew's very first start as a Jag. It's something many scouts, myself included, look for in college, and frankly, is something that I don't believe was very clear on his college tape at all. It just started to show up when he got to the NFL somehow. But whenever this ability was acquired is irrelevant because Minshew is a total stud at manipulating the pocket right now. He has great footwork. As we said, he knows when to hang in the pocket. He knows when to step up. He knows when to drift back to buy time. He knows when to run. He even at times will show that rare eye in the back of his head trait that many of you know what I'm talking about, where it's like, wow, how did he know he was about to get sacked and step up and make that play? He's just got an excellent shot clock in his mind to know when and how to move in the pocket. And having a quarterback that is so comfortable at managing his time in the pocket is a rare trait. And this, to me, has got to be the biggest trait working in Minshew's favor if he is to become a full-time starter in the NFL, because this is not something I would have said about Andy Dalton or about Alex Smith. So I give Minshew an A- for his pocket sense. While he isn't quite on the level of Mahomes or Rodgers at this, he's miles ahead of, say, Daniel Jones or Kirk Cousins, who could only dream of being as comfortable in the pocket as Gardner Minshew is. And that's going to bring us to our final trait here, and that is play extension. So I grade play extension based on the quarterback's ability to create plays when the first or second read are bottled up and they got to start scramble drill, or when instant pressure forces the play into a scramble drill. This grade will frankly be a combination of many things we've already discussed, but I find it important to grade this on its own just so you know kind of what you can expect specifically on play extension for the quarterback you're evaluating. So as for Minshew, he does have a genuine natural feel for play extension, and he does it quite often, and it's really good to see. A lot of it just stems from his composure in the pocket. He really is not afraid to get out on the move. He has some of those nice abilities we mentioned earlier to throw on the move as well. A lot of that being thanks to his mechanics and balanced lower body. Of course, you have a little bit of a limit with that arm talent like we mentioned. But when it comes to actually breaking sacks, eluding defenders, outrunning defenders for large gains on the ground, or making those big-time throws downfield, these are things that just shouldn't really be expected from Minshew due to his lack of physical traits. He does enough, but it's difficult to imagine in 2020 a quarterback without these traits to do the spectacular ever really being considered with how we view an elite quarterback, because the ability to make some of these big splash out of nowhere plays, just making stuff out of nothing, is often affiliated with being a transcendent talent at the position, which I do believe it's safe to say that will really never be the case with Gardner Minshew. Essentially, I think Minshew already does everything he possibly can from a play extension light, and he's genuinely really good at it. I grade him as a B for above average for ability to create play extension. but I have a hard time ever seeing surpassing that due to a lack of physical traits. So I really think B is about as high as it's ever going to get here. So just 16 games in, I see Minshew as an above average NFL mind. He's got good technique, he's generally accurate, and he has some of this rare it factor about him that I wouldn't have necessarily said about similar prospects like Andy Dalton and Alex Smith. But he does, however, have some pretty serious physical limitations, and he's going to have to continue to show those things and stack them up so that you have that confidence in him as a full-time starting quarterback in the NFL. But I do believe if he can do that and just play like he's playing right now, the Jags will win a decent amount of games. He's going to establish himself as a starting quarterback in the NFL, and they won't be in a draft position where they're going to be taking one of these top quarterbacks in the 2021 draft. So at this point, I'm confident enough to give him an overall grade of 75. This would place him 23rd in the league right now, firmly stacked up as a starting caliber quarterback in this league. Now, as for his potential and the ever-growing question, is he a franchise quarterback? I do, however, wonder how much better he can truly get from that 23rd ranking. Because despite the outstanding traits he does have, there is that lack of physical traits, and it's hard to project him that he's going to be able to consistently make the big-time plays that you're going to need to win a Super Bowl, which is ultimately going to be the big question, right? I do worry that he's going to have a certain floor, not unlike similar players such as Andy Dalton or Alex Smith, who even them struggled to become Super Bowl contenders despite a dream surrounding core. Now, like I've said, I do think Minshew has a certain it factor about him that most directly correlates to his pocket presence and understanding of play extension and decision making and how to move the chains on big, needy plays that guys like Smith and Dalton didn't necessarily have. And because of that, I do see a certain comparison that really resonates me if you want to talk about upside with Gardner Minshew, and that is Jimmy Garoppolo, who can do some of that stuff. So to me, that potential for Gardner Minshew is around the 16 range. I think he can continue to develop, and if he shows some more of the stuff he's showing, you're going to have more of that confidence in him to rank him with, say, a Jimmy Garoppolo. And this is the level of quarterback who you may never expect to win the Super Bowl with, but if a few things go your way and you surround him with exceptional help, this is the level of quarterback who, especially on a friendly rookie contract for 2 more seasons, may not be the reason you win a Super Bowl, but can absolutely be a reason for why you win a Super Bowl. And if you said that to a Jags fan a year ago, I think they would say they'll absolutely take those chances. So that's going to do it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm really excited to see Gardner go to work tonight. Excited to see his season play out and see what kind of potential he really has. Please do hit that like button before we head out. Cheers, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.